Good morning. So this month on our Soul Trek, we have been going back into our suitcase and our backpack and unpacking our tools. And the tools that we are unpacking is the Unity Principles, specifically Principle 4 and Principle 5. Principle 4 is prayer and meditation, and Principle 5 is not just talking about the teachings, but actually practicing them in our lives and actually living them. And one of the best ways that we can practice the presence of God, one of the best ways that we can practice Unity Principles is through selfless service, is through what the yogis call karma yoga, or the yoga of action. And when we take this attitude into the world, we move beyond the third dimension into fourth and fifth dimensional thinking and experiences. So we began that process last week of looking at karma yoga, and I want to continue that process today. Selfless service is more of an attitude rather than the actual action itself. And anything that we do can be an act of selfless service. Handing out bulletins, cooking a meal, talking to a friend, being present and listening. Ram Dass shared that when he worked in hospice, what he would do before he would visit a patient would be to stop and recognize that he was a spirit and a soul, and he was going to meet a spirit and a soul. And once he had that clear, then he said he was ready to serve, because he was meeting someone soul to soul. Jesus demonstrated it when he washed the feet of the disciples. He showed us that no one is better than anyone else, but that we share in that service. Excuse me. Swami Sivananda said it this way. He said, serve, love, give, purify, meditate, realize. Do good, be kind, be compassionate. One of the things that Swami Sivananda liked to do is he would like to put things to song so that it would be easier to remember some of the prayers. And not sure if I can sing it very much, but I'll give it a shot. Serve, love, give, purify, meditate, realize. Do good, be kind, be compassionate. Adapt, adjust, accommodate. Bear insult, bear injury, highest yoga. Now, when you hear the bear insult, bear injury, you're probably thinking, hey, wait a minute, stop right there. And I'm going to get more into that toward the end, because we're not advocating abuse here. But he truly was a selfless server in his life. And selfless service, thank you so much, Roger. Selfless service, when it becomes an act of worship, is a path to awakening. Now, it's different from simply doing good works and volunteering, because it puts it into a different tone. It calls for us to seek to serve instead of avoiding to serve. You may have heard this description. It's the story of somebody, everybody, anybody, and nobody. There was an important job to be done, and everybody was asked to do it. Everybody was sure that somebody would do it, and anybody could have done it, but nobody did it. Somebody got angry with that because it was everybody's job. Everybody thought that anybody could do it, but nobody realized that everybody wouldn't do it. And so it ended up that everybody blamed somebody when nobody did what anybody could have done. Ever been there? Ever had that experience? Like, everybody will take care of it. We don't have to worry about it, or somebody will take care of it. And so what I'm talking about in karma yoga and in selfless service is the exact opposite of that, but rather seeking ways to serve. Brother Lawrence wrote a book called Practice the Presence of God. And for him, every action, every movement was an act of service. He was a monk in the 16th century, or the 17th century, and he wrote this. He said that the time of busyness does not with me differ from the time of prayer. And in the noise and the clatter of my kitchen, while several people are at the same time calling for different things, I possess God in as great tranquility as if I were upon my knees in the blessed sacrament. How'd you like that, huh? To be in the kitchen, doing your dishes, cooking your meals, everybody's yelling at you, wanting things to be done, and you're like, hey, it's cool, you know? I'm just serving. I'm in the temple. I'm praising God. I'm worshiping. I'm being totally an instrument of spirit. So when we enter into selfless service, we're not looking for praise or thanks. We're simply doing it as a path of worship. And it's very similar to the way Jesus described prayer. In the book of Matthew, he said this about prayer. He said, whenever you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and on the street corners, so that they may be seen. And truly, I tell you that they have received their reward. What's their reward? It's being seen. It's like, hey, look at me. He goes on to say that when you pray, go into your closet and close the door. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. And so as we enter into selfless service, it isn't for being seen, but it's for doing it, if you will, almost in secret, that it becomes an act of service. Now here's the thing. It's very important to be mindful when we're participating in acts of selfless service, because I think if we're not mindful and we don't watch it, we can turn into martyrs. Yeah? Have you ever been, and instead of it being an act of worship, it isn't an act of worship, and it is not a path to awakening. Have you ever been served by somebody that doesn't want to serve you? I mean, really, it's like, yeah, come on in. Sure, yeah, I'll take care of it, you know? And so that's not what Brother Lawrence was talking about. I found myself in this situation this week. I am on the board of the Unity Northwest region, and we have 3 face-to-face meetings a year, plus phone conversations. And the face-to-face meetings are a stretch because it calls for people to come from as far as Eugene, Oregon, Spokane, Yakima, all over the place. There's 6 to 8 of us on the board. And we have hosted it the last couple of times, which is great because it means I don't have to drive, 5, 6, 7 hours to have a meeting. So last time I hosted some of the board members so that they wouldn't have to stay in a hotel, they could stay at my house, so obviously I offered that up again. However, this time what I didn't realize was, Caroline, my daughter, had moved home. She moved into my son's room, which means I took all of my son's stuff and I just threw it, and I mean threw it, in the guest room. You know what that's like, right? Where things just pile up. So I have 3 house guests coming, and I have a guest room that you can't even open the door, let alone lay on the bed in there. So I spent 2 days clearing that out, which is it's a pretty big job. And then it's like, okay, I need to make sure that they have food for lunch and breakfast, and when they're here, I need to be a gracious host. And one of our board members took the bus in from Spokane. I said, don't worry about it, I'll pick you up. Well, guess what? They moved the bus station. And the bus station is now by the ballpark. And guess what? There was a ball game the day that he came in. So it took me an hour and a half to go 3 miles. Talk about gridlock. And our board meeting, which was supposed to start at 4:30, finally started at 7. And what I also forgot was that night I had agreed a couple months in advance to pick up my girlfriend from the airport at 10:30. She was just coming back from Turkey, Africa, and Russia. So I get to the airport, I'm there on time, the plane's 10 minutes late, it takes 45 minutes to get her luggage. So by the time I get home, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, I have to get up at 6, I want to make breakfast for everybody, and you know what? I was not happy. I was starting to get very crabby and resentful and asking, why did I do this? What is wrong with me? I'm going to the airport, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And then I thought about it and I thought, wait a minute, this is the wrong attitude. Yes, I'm tired, but this is not the right attitude, because one of my paths is selfless service, is karma yoga. And so I thought about it and I said, these ministers drove 5 to 7 hours to be here. The very least that I can do is to provide for them a nice space to be in. The least I can do is provide food for them. The least I can do is serve them as they serve their own communities, as they serve their ministries. And so I was able to shift. So I think it's very important that when we're called to serve, whether it be our families or our work or our spiritual community, that we are mindful of the attitude with which we enter into it. Because as an attitude of worship, it is a path to awakening. But when it becomes an attitude of resentment, it's like that doesn't help anybody. Now you may say, well, I'd like to serve, I'd like to give, but maybe I'm not perfect. I don't have enough time, or I don't have enough money, or I don't have this or that. And the truth is that every single one of us is called to serve with who we are and where we are in that time. There's a story about a water bearer who would go down every day to the river to get water, and he had 2 pots on a big stick. And he would go and get the water. Well, one of the pots had a hole in it. So by the time he got back to the house, the other pot was only half full. The other pot was full. And so he did this every day. And, the pot that was broken felt really bad. Because it's like, this poor guy is walking all the way down to the river, he's coming back, and I'm only giving him a half a pot of water. And the other pot's like, hey, look at me, man, I'm doing my job. I'm bringing you a full pot. So after about 2 years of this, the broken pot said to the water bearer, look, I'm so sorry. I feel really bad because I have this broken piece in me, and I only give you a half a pot of water every time, and you're working so hard. And the water bearer said, no, don't worry about it. He said, I was very aware of that. And he said, in fact, as we come back, I want you to look down and I want you to look upon the path. And when they looked, they noticed that there were flowers all along the way. And he said, I was aware that you were broken. So I planted seeds, and you've been watering these seeds every day as we walk up and down this hill. And you'll notice that on one side, all these flowers are blossoming. All these flowers are blooming. So we give even in our brokenness. We give even in our not enoughness. We give even in our state of whatever that may be, where we're not feeling totally and completely fully on board. Paul said it this way in 2 Corinthians. He said, my grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness, so that the power of Christ can work through me. Have you ever noticed that when you're so overwhelmed, or when you feel like you can't do another thing, that's when you're willing to surrender it to the Spirit of God within and say, okay, God, you do it. You do it, because I cannot do it. Can you lower the screen, Annie? So it calls for us to surrender. It calls for us to make it an act of worship. I want to show you a video. Many of you have already probably seen it because it's been going around Facebook. And it is a commercial. I do recognize that it is a commercial. However, what it does is it fully and completely illustrates the idea of karma yoga and selfless service.
จะได้อะไรถ้าเขาทำแบบนี้ทุกวัน
เพิ่งจะมา
จะไม่ได้อะไรเลยไม่ได้รวยขึ้นไม่ได้ออกทีวีไม่มีใครรู้จักไม่ได้มีชื่อเสียงที่มากขึ้นเพราะสิ่งที่เขาได้คือได้แค่ความรู้สึกได้เห็นความสุขได้เข้าใจได้ความรักได้ในสิ่งที่เงินซื้อไม่ได้ได้โลกที่สวยงามกว่าเดิมในชีวิตคุณอะไรคือสิ่งที่คุณต้องการมากที่สุด
ไทยประกันชีวิตเชื่อในความดี
Judy, would you come? Would you come up? So I told you that I would address the last part of Swami Sivananda's verse, which is bear insult, bear injury, highest yoga. Here as a spiritual community, what we're here to do is to take that tool out of our pack and to live it in the world. And Judy told me this great story last week about this, and I tried to tell it back to her. I got it all wrong. So I thought it best if she tell us this short story.
So a couple of weeks ago, my daughter and I went to see Sarah McLachlan at the Saint Michel Winery. We go in, and there are all these people. We're on the lawn seats, so we end up sitting way in the back. Behind us is the row where everybody walks to the bathroom, and then there are just a couple of people, a few people behind us. Anyway, as soon as Sarah started singing, I couldn't sit down. I had to stand up, and I'm dancing all over, right? So I'm well in front of my chair anyway. And as she finishes her first set, I sit down. As I'm sitting there, I hear this voice behind me that says, "If you cared, next set you'll sit down so everybody behind you can see." And I thought, oh no, I'm making somebody mad behind me. So the next set starts. I'm sitting in my beach chair, and I'm dancing in my chair, and I'm dancing in my chair, and I'm dancing in my chair. And finally, she sings this song. I couldn't sit down another minute. I stand up, and I start dancing again. A cork flies over my head. Everybody's looking around going, "Hey, man, this is a concert. What's his problem, you know?" So I sit down, and I said to my daughter, next song that's really danceable, I'm going to go ask this guy to dance. She's going, yeah, right, you know. So about 3 or 4 songs later, I get up, and I go back, and I look at him, and I said, "Do you want to dance?" And he goes, "You're calling me out." I said, "Yes." He goes, "I'd love to dance." He got up, we went to that aisle. He didn't just dance across from me. He took me in his arms, and he danced me up and down the aisle. By the end of the evening, he's trading business cards with my daughter. They're talking jobs. He's asking me where I got my little roll-up table. We're like best friends. It was amazing.
with humor and with dance, right? So this month we're unpacking. We're unpacking some of our tools, particularly prayer, meditation, and bringing our teachings out in the world, specifically through selfless service. And I invite you to practice the presence of God through service. If you are serving and you find yourself becoming resentful or angry, step out for a while and then step back in. So we have a picnic today. There's lots of opportunities to serve each other, to help clean up, to do whatever. So we look for those opportunities. Like the man in the video, he gave what he had, and he gave from his heart and from his love. It didn't matter if his life was perfect or if he was rich. In his own brokenness, he also shared. Serve, love, give, purify, meditate, realize. Do good, be kind, be compassionate, adapt, adjust, accommodate, bear insult, bear injury, highest yoga. So may we continue with this trek the month of July by sharing selfless service, karma yoga, and loving kindness. Okay.